Good morning, class. Hey, it's Mr. Stewart, and this is going to be your Week 3 Tegrity lecture in regard to Chapters 4 and 5 for Criminology. A couple of announcements first. Remember that Exam 1 should be completed no later than Sunday of this week over Chapters 1 through 5. So make sure you go into the Exams tab, click on Exam 1. It should be available to you. I will check it after I get through recording this lecture just to make sure, but you'll have the first exam coming up is due no later than Sunday night. Please do not wait till 11 o'clock Sunday night to take the exam in case you have technical issues. And if you can sit down at a computer and do the exam and not do it over some wireless device, you may be saving yourself some hassle. So if you can do that, probably be a good idea to do that. So this week we're going to be talking about chapters 4 and 5. Now, the PowerPoints are out there. In fact, you should be seeing the screen where the PowerPoints are, where you can log into those. I'm not going to go into the PowerPoints, but what I'm going to do this morning is give you kind of a little bit of a deeper, further explanation of some of the theories that are in chapters 4 and 5 to help you understand those just a little bit more. Now, chapter 4 really has to do with the idea of choice. And it's important to understand that one particular school of thought in criminology called the classical school really has to do with this whole idea of free choice, that we as human beings have the ability to choose what we're going to do. And before you just jump on that train and say, well, that's the only way it could be, nobody's forced to do anything, there's a whole lot of different factors that we could say could possibly force us into doing something. But there's also this whole line of thinking that says, hey, I'm responsible for my actions. I'm going to decide what I do and what I don't want to do. And you guys understand choice all too well. You had a choice to take this class. You have a choice as to what days you get in and work in the class. You had a choice when you woke up this morning whether you're going to eat a bowl of cereal or stop by McDonald's for a sausage biscuit or skip breakfast. Or maybe, have something different than that. You have a choice of what you have for lunch most of the time. You have a choice of what time you go to bed. You have a choice of what clothes you put on. So our whole world is full of choice. And why should crime be any different than that? What I'm saying is that many of the people who commit crimes are making a choice. Now, the issue is how they get to that choice and what does that choice entail. Well, the choice is considered to be rational choice. And you have a theory in your textbook called rational choice theory, or sometimes just called choice theory. And it states that the view that crime is a function of the decision-making process in which the potential offender weighs the potential costs and benefits of an illegal act. And I want you to think about, weighing the cost versus the benefit. Now, I'm going to break that down for you just a little bit. If I'm thinking about committing a crime, and if you were thinking about committing a crime, you would probably consider several factors in that decision-making process. The first one is, let's just say, speeding. That's something that almost all of us, if not all of us, have done at some point. Now, sometimes it might be an accident. It might just be an oversight. You were negligent. But most of the time, you speed because you just don't get your foot out of the gas pedal. You're making a choice that I need to hurry up and get somewhere, so I'm running late, so I'm just going to speed to go where I'm going. You're making a choice to do that. What does that choice entail? You consider, what is the likelihood that I'm going to get caught? How easy would it be for me to get away with speeding? And how do you determine that? Well, maybe you go back to past experience. I've done this before. I didn't get caught. I've done this, and I've done this, and I've done that, and I didn't get caught. I know where the cops said on that particular road. I know what time they're usually out there. It's still a roll of the dice. It's a gamble, folks. If, even when you think you know these things, pardon me, it's a gamble. but it might be what we would consider to be a calculated risk. That's why we call it a cost-benefit analysis. So you look at the likelihood of getting caught, and then you think about, what is, if I do get caught, how bad is the punishment? You get caught speeding, it's a ticket. It might be a warning. Many women feel like they can, if they get stopped by the police, they can cry a few tears and and bat their eyelashes a little bit, and the cop's going to give them a warning, and that's going to be that. I've successfully talked my way out of a speeding ticket or two since I've been an adult. So you look at, I'm not very likely to get caught, and even if I do, the punishment isn't very severe. So you start seeing that the benefits begin to outweigh the costs. And then you look at the benefit. What's the reward I'm going to get if I engage in this crime? If it's speeding, you're going to get where you need to go without being late. You're not going to roll into Mr. Stewart's class at Calhoun and he embarrasses you because has everybody clap when you come in the door because you're late. You want to avoid that, so you would rather get a speeding ticket, or you'd rather take a chance on getting a speeding ticket. Probably not going to get caught anyway, and just go ahead and speed so you can get there so you don't face that embarrassment. So again, it's that cost-benefit analysis. When the benefits outweigh the costs, many people choose to engage in criminal behavior. It's almost like doing anything else when you're looking at the pros and the cons. Of course, the issue with crime is, if I'm really thinking about it, and you think about how likely I'm going to get caught and how swift and severe the punishment will be, that's a problem in our justice system, is that many people look at this idea and they think, well, even if I commit a felony, I might still not get caught. And even if I do, they're going to smack me on the wrist. I'm really, if I do go to prison, I can serve a small prison sentence. That's no big deal. So, it's performing this cost-benefit analysis, and as they do this cost-benefit analysis, now they don't just sit here in their mind and they, or take pencil to paper and figure out, which is more and which is less. This is something that's done psychologically in very short order. And the more practiced and professional they become at being criminal, the quicker this particular process is. People who are often criminals for the first time, they're often conflicted because to them the cost is outweighing the benefit, and that's what keeps most of us on the straight and narrow. Honestly, is that we look at, hey, I don't want to go to prison. I don't want to have to go to trial. I don't want to have to go to jail or whatnot. So therefore, we just don't engage in crime. I had a friend that always liked to say that he had people he would love to remove from the gene pool. But he said, I don't want to go to prison. I don't want to be in a cell with Big Bubba. I don't want to have to shower with other guys, and I don't want to have to, just do this whole I can't go home bit. So therefore, he said, I'm just not going to engage in the crime. It's choice. It's your choice. And it seems to be a pretty logical idea to grasp, this whole idea of free choice. You weigh the costs versus the benefits. Whichever one comes out on top is what is going to govern your behavior. Now, there's some other factors that kind of play into that cost-benefit analysis as to where the crime is going to be committed. That may play into the likelihood of getting caught, what the crime is versus how severe the punishment is. I mean, think about this. If you write a bad check to somebody, it's a felony. But what does the justice system do with most bad check writers, unless you are a repeat offender? They make you pay the check and maybe pay some court costs, and that's about it. You don't get sent to prison for writing a bad check, usually. So therefore, it's not a big deal for somebody to think about, man, I really don't have enough money in my account, but I need to get something, so I'm going to go ahead and write the check, and I'm going to try to beat that money to the bank, or maybe even they write a check on a closed account. That's one they typically give you a little bit more severe punishment for, because you knew at that point. They can prove that you knew that there was no money in that account because it had been closed, probably by you. So, again, it's about choice and weighing the options versus the cost. Now, there's a question that your book brings up, and a lot of people ask this too, is, well, is crime in fact rational? Because those of us who don't commit crime have a problem understanding how somebody that does decides to do that. How do they make that decision? Well, there's a lot of factors in play. There's a lot of socialization factors. There's a lot of what have you been exposed to? What is your normal? Understand normal, guys, is relative. What's normal for me may not be normal for you. What I do normally in the morning, what my normal daily routine is, may be quite different than yours. It's relative. It depends upon the time, the place, and the context of the situation. If you grow up in an area where crime is common, and maybe your family has been engaged in crime, you're gonna feel a lot better choosing crime over not choosing crime. And even though you're still going to be performing kind of that cost-benefit analysis, you're going to make that decision to commit crime. It's going to be easier for you to make. So understand, too, that what things that we consider, normal people consider irrational, maybe the people who are doing it do consider it rational. I mean, most of us cannot understand why somebody would use methamphetamine. Everything in it is poison to the human body. Why would you put that in your body? But somebody who's addicted to it, it's completely rational for them to use it. There's no problem with it. Maybe they understand it's not good for them, but they still can rationalize that. So therefore, they still have the ability to make that choice to a certain degree. When we get to talking about addiction, there's some issues with maybe the inability to make a choice once it gets past a certain point. But even if you're addicted, you can still make a choice. It's a hard choice to not use drugs if you're addicted, but it's still a choice. It's still up to you. It's still up to you whether you decide you're going to speed today. It's still up to you whether you decide you're going to go into McDonald's and hold it up at gunpoint. It's still up to you whether you're going to hurt somebody or kill somebody today. If you buy into this whole idea of rational choice, and it makes a lot of sense. Rational choice makes sense to us because it's something we can figure out logically. That if you can really calculate the cost versus the benefits, and whichever one comes out on top is the one you're going to choose, that makes sense to us. If you're hungry, you choose to go eat. If you're hungry for a cheeseburger, you probably don't choose to go eat Mexican. You're hungry for a cheeseburger, go eat a cheeseburger. If you need some money and you don't have a job, you're very likely to commit a theft to get something to sell for the money, or you're going to go rob somebody to get the money. So just understand that it's about this logical step-by-step process in which people look at the cost versus the benefits and then make a decision. So what can we do as far as policies go in the criminal justice system? What can we do to prevent crime by using this rational free choice theory? Well, think about it. If it's a cost-benefit analysis, what we need to do is change two things. We need to increase the likelihood that you're going to get caught, and number two, if you get caught, we need to make the punishment more swift and severe. So if we can change this whole mindset that, hey, I probably won't get caught, and increase the likelihood of getting caught, and if you do get caught, make the punishment worse, that should work. It's logical for us to understand that should work. In reality, I don't know that we've actually seen that. We do know that putting more police officers on the street helps. We do know that increasing punishments and severity of punishment helps. I don't think we've got to the point of saying that it can prevent all crime under this theory. Again, that's speaking in absolutes. Remember, this is a social science. There are no absolutes. So that being said, we know that it can help. We know that if we increase the punishment and we increase the likelihood you're going to get caught, that fewer people will commit crime. And that is a success story. However, you're not going to be able to commit or prevent all crime from happening just by doing those two things. But at least those are some action items that we in the criminal justice system can use. And this is what this is called is deterrence. And there's two types of deterrence. There's general deterrence and there is specific deterrence. General deterrence is when you make an example out of someone and you make that very public. And so the rest of the public sees, hey, this guy got caught for doing this crime, and he got a bad punishment for engaging in this crime. So therefore, that should tell the public, if they're considering committing the same crime, think again. Because you're probably going to get caught, and if you do get caught, then the punishment's going to be swift and severe. Think about this. We used to put people in stocks on the courthouse lawn. That's when you may have seen some of the old cartoons or read the stories where they put the people in this wooden frame with their head and their arms sticking out, and everybody would pass by and talk to them or throw tomatoes at them or something as they passed by the courthouse lawn. Now that was in colonial times, but it served a purpose. That was a general deterrence. That was a process by which the public saw, hey, this person did something wrong, and they got publicly shamed for it. They got publicly punished for it. So therefore, I don't want to go do that because I don't want to have to go through that. That's what general deterrence is. There's also another type of deterrence, and it's called specific deterrence. And what specific deterrence is it's supposed to keep you, after we punish you, from committing another crime, because we have punished you severely enough and swiftly enough that you decide, hey, I'm not doing that again. This one's a little bit more difficult to prove, and we know that we have a high recidivism rate in the United States. 9 out of 10 people that go to prison will get out at some point. 7 out of those 9 that get out will be back within 4 or 5 years. So we know there's a very high 70, almost 80% recidivism rate. And what that means is we're not punishing, if under this theory, we're not punishing them swiftly or certainly enough. We're not giving them a severe punishment. Now, I'm not necessarily talking about just sending them to prison. I mean, some of you probably may have been inside a prison. Prison isn't that bad in the United States. However, if we were to make it bad again, like it used to be, then we probably have a lot more specific deterrence. Somebody did it the first time and they say, whoa, I'm not going back to that place ever again, so therefore I'm not going to commit crime. The other side of that coin is, I'm not going back to that place again, so I'm going to commit my crime better so that I don't get caught. That's the downside of this whole idea of performing a cost-benefit analysis, is that sometimes when we do punish somebody, that punishment serves as an educational process, and they figure out better ways to commit their crime so they don't have to go through it again. They're not giving up on the crime. They're just improving themselves. They're engaging in a better quality work product next time. So that's something else to consider. Some other types of specific deterrence is we lock people up. We incapacitate them, which means you are not going to commit another crime out in the free world while you're locked up, unless you escape from prison. There is little evidence that incapacitating criminals will actually deter them from future criminality. However, there is reason to believe they may be more inclined to commit more crimes upon release. Again, they're in prison with other criminals. They teach each other how to be better criminals. They learn from their mistakes. Many people think that all criminals are stupid. They're not all stupid. They may not be the sharpest tool in the shed academically, but usually streetwise, they're pretty good at what they do, and they know that they can learn from each other. And so they do this. So therefore, specific deterrence may not necessarily work. And your book goes into detail describing this, and I'm not going to go into any more detail. I just want some things I want you to consider, because I'm trying to present this to you in kind of the big picture viewpoint, so that you can get a handle on the kind of the main concepts for this chapter. All right. So, policy implications of choice theory. If we increase the likelihood of them getting caught and we increase the severity and the swiftness of the punishment, it's a logical conclusion that crime rates will drop. So that's what a lot of our crime control policies are kind of founded on in this country right now. It's the fact that, hey, if we can make you believe that you're not going to get away with a crime, or if you do get away with it, you're going to get caught at some point, and when we convict you, you're going to be swiftly and certainly punished. It's supposed to help. Now, there's so many other theories and reasons why people commit crimes that it's hard to tell exactly how successful. Hard to tell exactly how successful that we are with the policies that are developed under this particular theory. If you have any questions in regard to free choice, make sure you send me a message through Course Messages, send me an email, give me a call, come by my office during office hours or whatnot. I am going to move into Chapter 5, and I'm going to touch on this for just a few minutes. Chapter 5 has to do with this idea of what's called trait theory. And trait theory is the view that criminality is a product of abnormal biological or psychological traits. Now, this is more akin to the positivist school of criminology, in that you're saying that people have some innate, inborn traits or skills that they're born with that makes them more conducive to committing crime. Now, I will not go as far to say that people are born criminals, but we can have some things going on genetically, psychologically, biologically, that can predispose us to criminal behavior because it affects our behavior in general. For example, temperament. If your mom and your dad have a short temper, that is typically passed down genetically through generations. So mom and dad have a short temper, you're likely to have a short temper, and therefore you might be more aggressive, or you might fly off the handle easier. And it's a logical conclusion to say that if you have a very short temper, you may be likely to engage in assaults, get into fights, altercations, not have a lot of patience with people, and maybe even make a movement toward violence, especially if you're a male and testosterone is running strong. So just understand that that's an example of a trait, is that is passed down genetically, is temperament. There's really no such thing as somebody being born criminal. We used to think so, but research has shown that people just aren't born criminal. But here's the thing: if you're a baby and you were born into a family, and that family is engaging in criminality day in and day out, from the time you're old enough to know, that's what you see. That becomes your normal. What you're actually doing is teaching that child, even just by default, that criminality is okay. This is what we do. This is how we live. This is just the way it is in our family, type of thing. So understand that that's actually socialization. And just think what happens if you combine a couple of those things together. If mom and dad have a short temper, they're engaging in a lot of fighting, a lot of assaulting, and maybe sexual, physical, verbal abuse. And at the same time, they both have a short temper. Maybe you are born with, you're a boy child, you're born with a higher level of testosterone, a lower level of estrogen, and you grow up and you start seeing that. It becomes normal. You start relying on some of those traits that you have, that you were born with, that you could not control. And that's what we call the idea of sociobiology, the view that human behavior is motivated by inborn biological urges to survive and preserve the species. But it's also based on socialization. You learn to engage in this behavior by seeing other people do it, and you model your behavior afterward. That's what we call the learning theory of crime or deviancy. But just understand that none of these theories are really separate from each other in a person. Is that a person is going to be defined by, and their actions could be defined by several different theories all at once. As you get further into the book, you're going to read about integrated crime theory, and that's really what that is. So just understand that we can be born with certain traits that can predispose us to abnormal behavior. A couple others are maybe some biological or biochemical issues. If a child is not given proper nutrition growing up, that can affect behavior. If they have low blood sugar or high blood sugar, hyperglycemia, that can affect behavior. If you have hormonal imbalances, that can affect your behavior. And it's just a logical conclusion to suggest that if your behavior is affected, therefore criminality could be a product of that affected behavior. Hopefully that makes sense to you guys. It's a step-by-step process. That if I have these things going on biologically, sociologically, genetically, then that's going to be affecting my behavior. And since my behavior is now affected, then we can move up into saying that in certain contexts that may result in criminal behavior. In many cases it doesn't. There's a lot of people out here that are completely law-abiding citizens that have all of these same issues. They just don't let it, they've learned to overcome it through socialization or through medication, or they've learned to control their issues, and so therefore they know that they're not supposed to be going out there committing crime, and they don't. And then you got other people that really don't care. Maybe they disregard what we would consider to be the social norms, i.e. the laws and the requirements that govern our conduct in society. So just understand that those are some of the issues. Ladies, PMS definitely affects your behavior. Guys, if you have not experienced this, it's coming. When you see how the temperament of women change when it's their time of the month. So you can also be born with some organic brain damage or organic brain issues that can affect your behavior, such as attention deficit or hyperactivity disorder. That can affect behavior, which in turn could affect criminal behavior as well. Brain chemistry. Everybody's brain chemistry is a little bit different. Some people's brain chemistry are more conducive to lacks of impulse control, or easy to anger, slow to recover type of thing. So all of that can affect behavior. Maybe testosterone leads to higher levels of aggression. You start mixing all these things together, you can see that it could possibly make a recipe for criminal behavior. I'm not gonna go much deeper into that right now, because I want to make sure that you read chapter 5 in your text. Make sure that you read the attachment theory. This is that's pretty interesting. And that theory suggests that being able to form an emotional bond to another person at certain parts of your life can affect your behavior. And if you fail to form that bond, then your behavior is likely to be affected, which in turn could lead to criminality. Behavioral theory, the view that all human behavior is learned through a process of social reinforcement, such as rewards and punishments. I mean, think about this. When you were a kid, you may have said, okay, if you want to get your allowance, you got to go clean your room. If you don't clean your room, you don't get your allowance. That's a system of rewards and punishments. Or if you did something wrong, you got punished for it. You got a spanking maybe, or you got grounded the older you got. So learning theory and behavior theory are pretty closely connected, and we see people doing things, we model our behavior after them. That's what learning theory is. Behavior theory is basically a conditioning process. So look at those theories and make sure that you can distinguish between those. Also make sure you look at the idea of cognitive theory, and what cognitive theory suggests is that some people don't think like other people. Some people have flawed thinking, and therefore their behavior can be erratic or just plain wrong. And that, of course, could lead to criminal behavior as well. Some people have a personality that is more conducive to criminality. And personality is something that a lot of it comes from genetics, but some of it also comes from your socialization. It's about how you learn to act. So make sure you read that section as well. All right. Intelligence. And many people think that criminals are dumb. Not necessarily so. If you were to just look at it from a single theory of intelligence, looking at what we would call the IQ, which only measures one part of our intelligence, we may see that criminals have lower intelligence than non-criminals. But there's actually several different types of intelligence. If you were to Google Howard Gardner's theory of multiple intelligences, then that will make it abundantly clear. I mean, some of us have greater levels of intelligence in certain areas, and some have lower levels of intelligence in other areas. That's what makes us who we are. Typically, we see in criminals, they may have a very high intelligence in regard to what we would call street smarts or functionality. They may have a very low intelligence in cognition, which means they don't really think about things too much, but they know how to survive on the street. And that could be a dangerous mix. So, that's just an example of that. All right. And then some people do commit crimes because they're suffering from a psychological disorder. We typically, if it's a severe psychological disorder, we typically don't punish people in the United States if they commit a crime and it's a major psychological disorder like schizophrenia or maybe even severe bipolar disorder. I wouldn't say we give them a pass, but we put them in a mental institution until such time as they're not a danger to themselves or the public. If they've committed a heinous crime, we don't try them and put them in prison if they're suffering from a severe psychological disorder. However, I will tell you this, over 50% of all prison inmates have been diagnosed with some psychological issue. So that means that just because you have a psychological issue doesn't mean you're going to avoid prison. It has to be a severe one, one of the major ones. So just understand that psychological disorders can also affect your behavior. And lastly, what can we do policy-wise in regard to trait theory? Well, we really have to treat the traits. We have to try to recognize those traits early, start early intervention programs. If we start to see young kids engage in very aggressive behavior, it's a possibility that they may have some psychological issues, and there may be some biological issues, or it may be some sociological issues, or all three that is causing that highly aggressive behavior. And if we can intervene early, the likelihood that we can keep them from being an adult offender is very high. So policy-wise, we engage in primary and secondary and tertiary prevention programs aimed at trying to get to the younger parts of the population and understand their behavior and correct their behavior while their brain is still moldable, while they still have plasticity in the brain, and we can teach them things. The older you are, the more set in your ways you are, and the less likely we are to change your behavior. But the younger you are, we can change it for sure. All right. Again, if you guys have any questions in regard to Chapter 4, Chapter 5, make sure you reach out to me. Remember to get in there and take that first exam no later than Sunday, and your grades should be posted next week in regard to that. All right, guys, have a good week. If you need anything, just give me a shout. Bye-bye.